How much does being prepared and feeling like your body is ready to compete play into the confidence that you have on game day or on competition day? There's a young swimmer that I've been working with who embodies this very well, because when he feels like his body is ready to compete, so he feels rested, he feels ready to go, his confidence is high. When he feels like he is tired or sore, his confidence drastically drops. Then what ends up happening is, as his confidence drops, this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because he doesn't push as hard as he needs to because he's already not believing that he can do very well. So what I would like to do is discuss the link between how your body feels, so how prepared you feel physically, and the confidence that you have. And then what can you do on those days when you don't feel very prepared, your body doesn't feel good, but you still need to have confidence to compete. So this swimmer and I were talking about a meet that he's had recently and the differences between two of the days. So the second day of the meet was where he did his best. He dropped time on his 200 butterfly, he did very well, and he felt confident in himself. Now that day, he had gotten a really great night's sleep the night before, he'd gone through, he did some good warm-ups, and then he felt very good physically, so then he ended up swimming well. The second day, however, he got there and he felt sore. This was actually the third day of the meet, and so his body felt tired, he felt sore, and so he told me that he felt very slow when he got in the water for his warm-ups. He then ended up not swimming his best for the actual meet. What's really interesting here is that on that day where he did not feel good, he was swimming a 100. On the first 50 of the 100, he didn't push himself as much as he needed to because he was afraid that he was going to lose energy on the second 50. The main reason for this was because he didn't feel good physically that day. And this is something that we see happen for him quite often, where he doesn't feel good physically, so then he ends up holding himself back because he doesn't believe that he has the stamina or he has the strength that day. So this then becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And this is something that I've seen in other athletes as well, where when they don't feel as good physically, they end up holding themselves back because they're not sure that they can do it. I've seen this in cross-country runners. I've seen this in triathletes. I've also seen it in basketball players or soccer players where they just don't feel as good that day, so then they end up getting in their heads, and this becomes, again, a self-fulfilling prophecy for them. Now, the reason this happens is because sports are physical. So when you feel good physically, naturally you'll go out there and you'll play your best because you feel like, okay, I can go out here and do well because my body feels ready. And that just reinforces the importance of preparation and making sure that you are well rested. And so the thing that the swimmer and I have been talking about is that he needs to make sure he has his nutrition in place. He needs to make sure that he's getting an adequate amount of sleep, because that is something that's happened to him in the past where he did not get a good night's sleep. He stayed up too late the night before. Then he ended up feeling slow the next day. So you need to make sure you're getting a good night's sleep. But it also goes into the type of training that you're doing throughout the week, the type of work you're putting in outside of practice and outside of training to rest your body, but also to make sure that your body is primed and ready to go. So really this part is where you're making sure that you do everything you can physically to be ready and to allow yourself to feel good and ready to go on game day, because we know how important that is. But the main idea that I want us to focus on is I want to focus on what you can do if you don't feel good. Right? So you're going to do everything that you can in terms of preparation. You want to make sure that you're resting well, you are sleeping well, you're eating well. But still, sometimes there are those days where you show up and you've done all of that, and yet you still don't feel good. Your body feels heavy. You feel lethargic. Things just don't feel right. Your mechanics feel a little bit off that day. A lot of golfers that I work with, they'll say their swing just feels off that day. So then what can they do, right? They're not feeling good physically. That's where we have to turn to our mindset to help us pull through and still do well that day. So with the swimmer example, something that he and I have been talking about is that when he does not feel good physically, he still has to make sure that his thinking is the type of thinking that he would have if he did feel good. Because the truth is, we cannot change how we feel on that given day. So he can't all of a sudden make himself feel faster or make his body feel better if he feels tired and he feels sore. But he can make sure that he is thinking in a confident way. And this is where he needs to be thinking things like, I can still do well today. I trust in myself. I'm going to go out here and give full effort. Then he would want to stick to his natural game plan instead of trying to hold himself back like he did in that first 50 in the last meet, right? He's got his game plan in place. He needs to stick to it, because the worst thing that can happen is he holds himself back even though, he was a little bit sore, but he still had that endurance, right? He still had that stamina. He still could have pushed a little bit harder on that first 50, but because he didn't feel good and because he started to think about how he didn't feel good, he would hold himself back. So that's really the first tip I have for you. If you feel like you're not feeling 100% physically, or your mechanics don't feel 100%, you have to make sure that your thoughts still are confident. You have to make sure that you're still thinking in a way that you would think if you felt good, because what we do not want to have happen is we don't want to have your thoughts then reinforce how you feel physically, which then leads to you doubting yourself, which then means that you play timidly, you play scared, you overthink. We have to think in a confident way. Another tip that I have for you is you want to simplify what you're trying to do that day. So for the swimmer, if he's not feeling 100% physically, he wants to simplify what he wants to achieve that day. And so it might be as simple as saying, hey, I want to make sure that I get a good start on the first 50 for the 100-meter swim. I want to make sure that I get a good start. For a golfer, it might be that they want to focus on getting up and down within their game, or they want to focus on just, going through their pre-shot routine. For a basketball player, it might be that they just want to focus on something as simple as making clean and quick passes. But the reason that we want to simplify when we don't feel good physically is because, number one, we want to take our attention off of how we feel physically. Because if we get too caught up in the fact that, oh, my mechanics don't feel good, or my body is sore, I don't feel ready to compete today, if we get too caught up in that, then again, we're overthinking and it just distracts us. But this is also going to help you simplify your game to a point where you're focused on what's going to help you succeed that is controllable. So for that swimmer, if he's focused on getting a good start on that first 50, that's something that's controllable that will then lead to a good race for him. If a basketball player is focused just on making crisp and clean passes and making smart decisions, that's going to be something that's in their control, and it's also something that will help them get some success and get some kind of small wins during that game. So if you are feeling like you're not there 100% physically, let's simplify things and only focus on maybe one or two things that are in your control. And then the third tip I have for you, if your body's not feeling good, if you're not feeling as well as you would like to physically with your mechanics, is that you can use some visualization before the game. The reason that you want to use this visualization is because if you're not feeling 100% physically, what can naturally happen is that you start to imagine yourself playing badly. Because now, if you've felt this way in the past and then performed poorly, your mind will probably go back and start to imagine, well, how did I play last time I felt this way? And it wouldn't have been playing well. So then you start to picture you making a bunch of mistakes. And then you'll start to picture you making mistakes for the upcoming game. And then you'll start to worry about that. And as you worry about that, and as you fear making mistakes, again, that's what's filling your mind. So even though you don't feel 100% physically, we need to make sure that you are imagining yourself succeeding. That's where you can use the visualization. So for the young swimmer, what he and I have talked about is performing some visualization before the race, where he visualizes himself racing well. For a basketball player, soccer player, baseball player, football, any other sport, visualize yourself doing well in the upcoming game. Because when we don't feel 100% physically, it is easy for us to imagine past times when we've done poorly and then worry about doing poorly in the future. So you want to make sure that you're doing absolutely everything you can to get your body feeling right and your mechanics feeling right for game day, because we know that when you feel good physically, you'll have more confidence. But the truth is, we can't always guarantee that. So if you don't feel 100% physically, if your mechanics feel a little off, make sure that you keep your thinking confident, right? You keep your thinking the way it would be if you did feel good. You simplify things within your game and just focus on one or two aspects of your performance that are controllable. And then lastly, let's make sure we use some visualization before the game to be creating this memory of you doing well, instead of allowing the fears and the memory of you performing poorly dominate your mind. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I put out new videos each week on sports psychology and mental training. And if you're interested in any of the sports psychology programs I have available, I've put links to those in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I wish you the best of success in all that you do.